If there's one thing the human race can agree on, is that food is really important. I mean, without it, you die. It's as simple as that. And this really goes double for me, because my mom was always an amazing cook. She always cooked the best stuff and still does to this very day. So this appreciation for food has gotten me thinking about how many games there are that have fun mechanics centered around food. And I'm not talking like cooking games, you know, where it's like the entire thing is you cook food. I'm talking about like games that are mainly something else, but have this mechanic of consuming or creating food on the side. I mean, food has sort of always been a part of video games. Like, back in the early days, food was usually like a pickup or, you know, like an item that was used to restore health. Like the earliest I can think of is in Mario, where mushrooms would make you bigger. And this is pretty much how it stayed for a while. You just pick up the food, and then you gain some more life for an extra hit or something like that. But eventually, it would sort of evolve. And I think this change really started with like the survival genre. And of course, the most popular game in that is Minecraft. Now, Minecraft originally did start as one of those games where food just became a healing item, where if you took damage, you'd eat some food and get some health back. But eventually, Minecraft had an update called the Adventure Update, or 1.8 for your OGs out there, where they added in a whole bunch of stuff. But most importantly, what we're going to talk about is the food bar. The food bar is the little meat-shaped thing in the corner here. Its functionality, if you really break it down, it's almost exactly the same as a health bar, where if you get 0, you start dying. But it adds a bit more of an interesting flavor to the whole like game, because, you know, the idea is like surviving, and usually to survive you need to eat something. So it adds that nice bit of flavor to the game. Get it? Flavor? But it really is different than before, because in previous games, if you were good enough, you could theoretically go throughout the entire game without ever having to use one of these health/food items. But now, you're forced to go out into the world and look for these to keep yourself sustained and alive. Makes sense. But if I'm being honest, I don't really like the survival genre. I find it kind of tedious. I only ever really played Minecraft because, you know, it's kind of fun to just, you know, build stuff with your friends. But Minecraft is not the only game that uses food. This is a game I talked about before, and I just really love this game. You all know it. You all should hopefully love it too. And that game is Monster Hunter. Cue epic music. Cue it. Put it on. Do editing me. Put epic music. Put it in. Don't make me look dumb, please. Okay, we're good. So Monster Hunter has this place called the Canteen. It's an essential part of the Monster Hunter experience. Before any hunt, you 100% need to go to the Canteen. Otherwise, you're probably gonna get slapped around by that monster you're gonna go hunt. Eating from the Canteen provides various beneficial buffs, such as an increase in stamina, an increase in health, more attack, sometimes more defense, maybe an extra carve off of the monster. All these different options add a choice before a hunt. It gives the player the freedom to sort of add that little extra bit to their already carefully curated build. Like, if you're gonna fight a fire monster, but your armor has very low fire resistance, you can go to the Canteen and eat something that will give you more fire resistance, so that you're not at a lesser advantage against that monster. It also gives the player a chance for interesting decisions. Like, if you're going against a monster with a lot of damage, would you find it more beneficial to increase your own attack so that the fight is over with faster, or increase your defense so that you're less likely to be knocked out by this monster? I think all of this culminates in a good system that makes Monster Hunter a premier example of how food should be utilized in games. But of course, this is not the only example of a game that utilizes food in a really interesting way. And the next game that I want to talk about that does this is Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is a game that's just jam-packed with tons of like mini systems that all just roll together to make like this beautiful sandbox exploration game. Those of you that have played Breath of the Wild are probably pretty familiar with how the food system works in the game, but for those of you that don't own a Switch, as you run around the world of Breath of the Wild, you'll be able to pick up all sorts of little things like weapons and other items, and sometimes wood, and sometimes food. Pretty much all food items can be combined to make new dishes at a cooking pot. Depending on what you put in, the dishes will have different properties, such as making you stronger or more resistant to heat and cold, and all sorts of different stuff. Breath of the Wild also takes a note from older games which used food as a source of health. But the difference here being is that most foods do not gain their full potential until they are combined or at least cooked in the cooking pot. Like there are these chili peppers that if you eat alone won't really do much, but if you combine them with some meat, you'll get some spicy meat, which will allow you to run around in the cold in your underwear. You know, like you do. If you think about it, it's kind of a combination between the old healing item system and the new buff system from Monster Hunter, but it's taking them and putting them into this new context of this sandbox open world. Like in Monster Hunter, you can only eat like the one meal beforehand, and the other games you have to scrounge around and just hope that a healing item appears when you need it. It also kind of feels like the whole survival thing where you scrounge around for food and then make new dishes to help you better survive, but it's much more interesting because instead of just being a bar that you have to fill, it actually like helps you out and gives you decision making while you're exploring this world. I think Breath of the Wild is a true testament to like just amazing game design because it has all these other systems already and then they just added this in on top of it. Like they didn't need to do that. If they just had health like lying around as hearts like they did in all the previous Zelda games, no one would have even noticed. They would have just been like, yeah, that's normal. Even though Nintendo is kind of like the grandpa of the video game world where they don't understand the newfangled like online connectivity stuff, they still can make like just a fantastic game. And with that said, it's time to move on to our final topic of this video, which is a little game called Odin Sphere. This game, probably not a lot of people are familiar with. It's rather obscure, but I think it's an excellent game and an excellent example of an interesting way to implement food into your game. Odin Sphere is this small beat-em-up RPG type thing where you basically have to save the world by killing tons of stuff. You know, usual fare. However, its level up system is handled a bit differently than others. In a typical RPG, you usually kill guides and gain experience to level up, right? While you do gain experience in Odin Sphere from killing enemies and completing encounters, it is not the most efficient way to do it. What actually gains you the most XP is eating at the restaurant. Throughout levels, you'll find this bell that you can ring that summons this bunny guy that will cook food for you. And food always gives you a little bit of health back, but more importantly, experience points. Each different type of food gives you a different amount of experience based on how hard it is to get the ingredients for it. This system is incredibly smart, and I'm gonna give you a little lesson in why. Think back to a time that you went to a restaurant, like a really good, fancy restaurant. Do you remember that meal? Do you cherish that meal in your memory? Would you say it was an experience? Huh? Get it? Huh? Well, now say you went back to that restaurant and you had that meal again. It'd still be pretty good, right? Just not as good as the first time. It's never quite as good as the first time. And Odin Sphere mimics that by having the food give you less experience if you've had it a couple times already. Like, this is just so cool. Okay? Let me just say that. It's so cool because I feel like people are always talking about innovation and that kind of stuff, but like 9 times out of 10, when a game innovates, it's kind of bad. Like, well, let's be honest, it's kind of bad. But that one time where you find a game that does something truly unique and it's just so good and brilliant, it's like, so good. I'm not saying games shouldn't innovate, because there's been plenty of games that have innovated and completely changed the genre. But I'm just going to say there's something to be said for being able to innovate in a really good way, because not everybody can do that. Not everybody can make an innovative game that's also good. The point I'm trying to make with this video is that food can make for a great addition to any video game that can fit it in. Obviously, not all games are going to have room for such a system because they're going to be focused on something else, like a first-person shooter. If you had to like stop in the middle of shooting some guy to eat a baguette or something, you'd be like, "What is this? What is my life?" At the end of the day, games are meant to be fun, and everything that's put into the game should enhance a player's experience. Food can obviously be a great way to do this, because it's an easily recognizable thing to pretty much everyone in the world. If you're an aspiring game developer, try and think of ways that you can include food in your games that would enhance the player experience. I'll start you off with something. What if you had a game that was set in a post-apocalyptic world where most currencies are defunct? However, people still need to eat. So you can trade food or food items in order to gain other supplies such as clothes, weapons, ammo, and stuff like that. And if you have a higher cooking skill and can make more delicious food, you can trade it for better quality items. That's just a small idea I came up with on the spot though. Feel free to make up your own or use mine if you really like it. Just remember that at the end of the day, you want it to be fun. You want it to be an enjoyable experience. And I think if you utilize food in the right way, you can make that happen. I want to thank you all very much for watching. This was a really fun time to make. I really enjoy talking about video games and food, so, good combination. But thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.